Chapter 5, pain. God breaks you to remake you. 2 Corinthians 4:8, we are hard-pressed on every side, yet not crushed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Again, I am reading from the book, I Almost Quit, My Journey of Leading Through the Landmines of Ministry. And we are making it available as a free download right now at westsidechristianfellowship.org. All my books are there as free downloads, westsidechristianfellowship.org. And you can read it while you're listening if you like. Also in the ebook, there are some links that will take you to some additional material such as my sermons, etc. So let's get going. Early in my ministry, I read the following in Charles Spurgeon's famous book, Lectures to My Students. If you can do anything else, do it. If you can stay out of ministry, stay out of ministry. At the time, I remember thinking, wow, the 1800s when Spurgeon lived must have been very difficult, a very challenging time. And I'm sure that really doesn't apply now. Boy, was I wrong. Of all the things I underestimated going into the ministry, it was the amount of pain it would produce. Now, this is not in the book. This is just a little bit of extra information. I think it's because as a pastor, obviously you're leading people. It's different than a CEO. It's different than a business owner. Of course, your employees obviously affect your life and things like that. But in ministry, you're so close to pain, and it's a place for broken, hurting people. And you're going to get 100 times more criticism than had you just take a 9-to-5 job somewhere, 100 times more gossip and slander aimed at you, aimed at your family. There's, of course, tremendous people that come alongside of us, and we thank God for those. If it wasn't for those people, I wouldn't be in the ministry. We would have quit a long time ago. But you're going to receive a lot more of everything that's difficult about being a Christian. That's why it's challenging. As a pastor, as a leader, sheep bite. You don't handle everything correctly. I know that might be a wake-up call to some people. I don't handle everything correctly. Sometimes we react when we should have responded, sending text messages inconsiderate. Our time it's hard to balance time. And so people think you should be doing this, but you think you should be doing this. And so that's why it's very painful, is because life is painful already, and you're going to multiply that by quite a bit when you get into the ministry. But to be forewarned is to be forearmed. That way you at least know, okay, and if you can use this pain for purpose, that's the flip side with pain. It can be a really good producer of godly character. Of all the things I underestimated, again, going in the ministry, it was the amount of pain it would produce, whether it's relational pain, criticism, burnout, disappointment, health issues, personal struggles. You just keep filling in the blank. It takes its toll. At times, the pain can be unbearable. When left unchecked, pain turns into discouragement, and we can easily become bitter. Bitter men become angry and isolated men, which can lead to a very difficult work environment for staff. And it's an unloving experience for many of our church members when we're operating in pain. So in other words, you will receive pain, you will feel the pain, but you cannot operate in the pain, lead in the pain, because bitterness, resentment, becoming disgruntled, all of that will begin to affect those around you. And wives become emotional punching bags for men who are in a lot of pain and holding in that pain and becoming bitter and discontent. And then our kids sometimes begin to doubt God when their father doesn't exhibit the same joy that he preaches about. Noted author and speaker Josh McDowell once said, one of the most common questions I get is this: how can we live for Christ when we don't want the Christ that our parents have? What a powerful reminder to not let pain poison our hearts, especially because leaders who hold in pain are more likely to fall into sexual immorality or addiction to numb the pain, or a lot of other sins. And that's what pain does. It causes us to take the wrong path from time to time if we don't use pain to our advantage. I'm going to explain that here in just a minute. The beauty and blessing of brokenness. Here we go. As stated in the introduction of this book, pastoring is a hard calling because our lives and the lives of our wives and children are constantly on display for the world to see. We've been hurt so much that the walls we build to protect us can eventually imprison us. But in the midst of pain, God often does something beautiful. And again, want to interject just so people don't think we are perfect. Pastors do cause some of their problems. We do cause self-inflicted pain. And when we do, we must repent and get back on track. Although it hurt and will hurt from time to time, brokenness, like setting a bone, can eventually strengthen us. Moses spent years on the backside of the desert, possibly in pain, and God broke him and prepared him. Isaiah was completely broken when he cried out, "Woe to me, I am ruined. My eyes have seen the King." Isaiah 6:5. Jeremiah collapsed and cried out, "My soul will weep in secret." Chapter 13, verse 17. And the Psalms are saturated with the brokenness of David. And Paul had to be knocked to the ground and have his eyes blinded by the glory of God before true humility and brokenness became a hallmark of his ministry. Throughout the Bible, brokenness was and still is the hammer that God uses. Broken pride results in beautiful humility. So here's the good thing about pain. If it can break the pride out of you and you can become thankful instead of discouraged, if you can become better instead of bitter, it's incredible. I looking back, I really thank God for pride because I'm pride. I thank God for brokenness and pain because it crushes the pride. It really does. I'll never forget the day that I read the following by A.W. Tozer. It is doubtful whether God can bless a man greatly until he has hurt him deeply. I was going through a very difficult season, and I soon realized that God was breaking me down to build me back up. I was at a turning point. I could become bitter and resentful, or I could humble myself and grow from the experience. And trust me, we have these types of experiences, seems like sometimes on a monthly basis. And this is where the majority of pastors find themselves today. Instead of getting better, we become disgruntled. Instead of emptying ourselves to be filled with the Spirit, we tend to be full of pride and selfish ambition and pain. We excuse our actions because of the pain. I've been hurt, so I'm going to lash out and I'm going to hold this in. And this needs to change. It absolutely needs to change. We must continually take our thoughts captive and remind ourselves that pain is part of God's calling. Like the limp that wouldn't leave Jacob or the thorn that kept Paul humble, the beauty and the blessing of brokenness is that it can act like a magnet, drawing you closer to God. But if you are the main cause of your pain, then you must repent immediately and apologize. Even if you think the other person should carry some of the responsibility, we must be the better person and pursue reconciliation whenever possible. Check out Romans 12:18. We don't have to take all the responsibility unless warranted, but we often need to initiate the reconciliation. That's what many pastors, I don't think, realize. We're waiting for people to come to us, or we're kind of keeping our distance, or we're kind of hurt. I get hurt weekly, it seems like. Just even now as I'm recording this, people have came to me and just have said some things that, hey, other people are saying about you, this, about you, and the church, and, just want you to be aware. Sometimes those people are used by the enemy to come in and discourage you, but often sometimes you need to know certain things as well. And so the pain all this brings, it just seems like it's on a weekly basis sometimes. So my thought is, you've got to be the initiator as a leader, as a lead pastor. You're not lead pastor as in a sense of entitlement. You're lead worshiper. You're lead reconciler. You're lead peacemaker. You have to lead the way in those areas and just say, you know what, I could have handled things better. Would you forgive me? And that goes a long way. Often your humility will crack the armor of defense that the other person is wearing. God is no respecter of persons, but he is a respecter of principles. And the principle of brokenness is profound. Guys, I hope you caught that. This is important. God is no respecter of principles. God is no respecter of persons. He is a respecter of principles. the principle of brokenness and humbling ourselves will take you a long way in a good direction.